self-control. Gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She comes with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. Welcome, everybody, to the Paranormal Portal Night Terrors. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. I hope you're having a great night. Thank you for being here with me and enjoying the last bit of your fine weekends. I appreciate it a bunch, and I hope everything's going great out there, guys. Had a pretty good day here. Got some things done. Had a great interview with a gentleman by the name of Andrew today from the UK. I'll do part 2 of that tomorrow, but let me tell you, just as a sneak peek ahead, my God, there's some beautiful stories. He's had some incredible experiences. It's just like, wow. And I'll be excited to air that podcast, and that'll probably be on Wednesday, ladies and gentlemen. So I hope you guys will get a chance to tune in to the podcast on Wednesday. It was incredible. It really was. I love every podcast I've ever recorded, and I'm sure Don would say the same, that he's had a good time with all of them. But sometimes there are stories that are so absolutely powerful that they just make you just stop and pause and go, oh my God, So that's all I'm going to say about it, but it was an incredible interview. Again, I'm going to do part 2 of that tomorrow. It'll all get stitched together into an episode by the deft and able hands of our very own Don Longbeard, and we'll put it out on Wednesday in the podcast verse for all of your listening enjoyment. So I hope there's a big red dot in the chat. I hope that everybody enjoys it. I know that I did. All right, guys. So I hope you guys are doing good. Welcome to the show. This is the Night Terrors, and I can't thank you enough for being here. We've got some good stories lined up for you tonight, but as you know, the phone lines will be open throughout the duration of the show, and by that I mean you can call 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500 if you want to call in and be a part of the show. If you do call in, please make sure it's about the paranormal, though. I love hearing from you guys, and if you ever need to reach out to me in any other respect, let me know. Give me an email and we can get in touch for sure. But just for the sake of the show, make sure it stays within the realm of the paranormal, because that's what we do here, ladies and gentlemen. So love you all bunches. I guess that's all I got to say in the front end of this. Good to see you all piling in, bunches of you already, and we'll see just how many more show up for the Night Terrors. But for right now, I hope you're ready, because it's time for bed. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are underway. It is the Paranormal Portal, and we are underway. So I got some stories that I'm pulling up for you right now. As a matter of fact, I was just on the phone moments before actually launching the show here now for you. But Let me get these things opened up so we have something to discuss. We had some good shows on Friday and Saturday night as well. Thank you all for all of the participations I had from all of you out there listening and taking part in the shows. It's always great to hear from you guys, and thank you so much for that. No, I did read that email, didn't I? Dang, I hope I did. I'll have to go back and review. Everything becomes a blur, and I guess that's kind of my own fault for doing so many shows. But I think as I'm recalling things, I think I covered everything as far as the listener emails. But I'm thinking I might have forgotten one, and if I did, I'm sorry. But it'll be covered. I do want to say coming up this coming Friday on the show, please remember that our very own Deb Varn will be joining us here on the Paranormal Portal to be doing psychic readings. So that'll be this coming Friday night on the portal. So I hope you guys will take part in that show and get a reading of your very own. Just a really cool opportunity to get a peek ahead. 2020 is wide open in front of us now, and maybe it'll be good to have some insight into what's coming up. But hopefully all good stuff. That's all I'm saying. We've all had enough of a journey through the 19, 17, 18, 19s. So let's hope 2020 is indeed the beginning of the roaring 20s. So the first story I got for you guys tonight is from California, actually, oddly enough. There's a big red dot on it. All right, so sorry. It is what it is. California. It says, I've never submitted a story before, so please bear with me. This incident took place in Sacramento, California, when I was around 22 or 23 years old, and I'm now 30. At the time, I decided to stay a night at my boyfriend's, now ex-boyfriend, house because it was getting just too late to go home, and I was having a really hard time sleeping for some reason. So I decided to close my eye, only one apparently, but Cyclops, thinking that I would eventually fall asleep. Well, as soon as I had done so, I felt my chest getting really heavy, and I was having a hard time breathing. Well, I started praying. Sleep paralysis has happened to me before in my head, and I believe it was a couple of seconds later it had gotten off of me. I was really freaked out, and when I was laying there, when it was over, so I thought I just happened to look up towards the ceiling, and what I saw I will never forget. It looked to be a black figure facing me with white eyes, and its hands and legs, for some odd reason, looked like it was stuck to the ceiling, but its body and face was facing me. I don't know if that made sense or not. I don't know how long I must have laid there looking at it, and it looking at me, and as soon as I was out of shock, I jumped off the bed and ran for the lights, but when I did that, I looked to the ceiling again, and it was gone. To this day, I still can't explain to myself what it was. I've never seen anything like that, but I did have experience with sleep paralysis, but have never seen anything when it was over. Can someone please tell me what they think it might be? Thanks for reading my story, and I have many, many more to come. Here's the thing. Sleep paralysis is indeed a medical condition, but it doesn't have to mean that it's exclusively a medical condition. Now, the medical definition of it is, and I'm going to bastardize this, but just for the sake of explanation, let me explain to you what the clinical definition of sleep paralysis is that essentially when we're sleeping, our brain is releasing a chemical that essentially disconnects our mind and the actions that we're thinking of from our physical body, so we aren't having a dream and run out of a window and fall to our deaths. I mean, it's just a disconnect because our minds are still very much active during our sleep cycle, and we do all kinds of things physically in our dreams that can't be enacted by our bodies. So this is some kind of a chemical that is released, and what they believe happens, and maybe they have a real good idea, I don't know. But what they believe happens is that the conscious mind wakes up prior to that chemical being completely removed from the system. So the conscious mind is aware and awake, but can't move because that disconnect is still happening. So that's what they believe sleep paralysis is, as I understand it. Is that possible? Sure. And I'm sure it happens. I'm sure many people experience that. However, there's another form of what is sleep paralysis, and maybe it utilizes the same mechanisms, but it's an induced mechanism rather than a natural mechanism of the person. I think that perhaps there are entities that seem to, for whatever reason, feed off of us in our sleep state when we're vulnerable, and they may feed off us in a good way. They might just be drawing off the negativity off of us and helping us. It might be very good, like somebody coming in to sweep and mop the floor when all the shoppers are home, and before they come the next day. But it could be nefarious that they're just taking something that we need in order to sustain themselves. I don't know. I've heard both versions, and I don't pretend to know. But there seems to be a supernatural version of sleep paralysis, and then there seems to be a very clinical version of sleep paralysis, and both, I believe, are valid. Not all are either clinical, and not all are supernatural. I think that there's some that are and some that aren't. But if you open your eyes and you see an apparition of being some kind of creature, then I'm going to wager that you're having a very supernatural experience, just in my opinion. Whatever that's worth. But I don't discount that there is a clinical sleep paralysis and that does indeed happen. But I think that there's also a very supernatural sleep paralysis that happens. It's called the old hag syndrome. It's called many other names around the world, but it's essentially the same thing. They believe a spirit is coming and drawing off of us. Again, good, bad, or otherwise, who knows, but it's doing it, and it needs to disable us so we can't move while it does it. So there you have it. That's, in a nutshell, what I believe. Not that that's important in any way other than my own beliefs, but it's my show, and you get to hear it. So they gave me a microphone, and you get to hear it. So, all right, let's continue on. That was a good story and a good discussion point. Now, the next one is coming from Iowa. You don't hear a lot out of Iowa, so that's kind of cool. This one's a bit longer, so let's see what's going on in Iowa. I don't think that's a photo. No, I don't think so. I think that's a little ad or something. We'll look, though. I understand that this location prefers personal experiences with the paranormal, and I will provide my personal experiences at a later time, as they are by no means as interesting as the story I'm about to relate. I've been lurking here for a while, reading a lot of different posts and Death Creepus? I don't even understand. This must be a user named Death Creepus or Cyprus. If you read this, your forest elemental story inspired me to post this story, more specifically because of the descriptions of the dark-skinned, inverted leg joint creature your friend encountered in the forest. This story is eerily similar, and I will try to provide as much detail as I can, perhaps annoyingly so. No, this did not happen to me. It happened to a dear friend of mine, and when we were about middle school age, and to whom I am still very close, I sincerely believe him, and to this day, he recounts this story with exactly the same detail. This experience occurred in a trailer park, I know, called Wilshire Hills, in Norwalk, Iowa. The address is 275 Route 63 Highway, Norwalk, Iowa. Sorry, couldn't find the zip code. And there are several sprawling cornfields that border this mobile home property, and my friend Josh lived here at this time, and on this particular occasion was hanging out with his friend James, whom I also know. On this night, my dear friend Josh and his friend James were outside of Josh's next-door neighbor's mobile home, trying to get a girl to come out and be mischievous with them. And it was summertime, so the evening was warm and balmy. The skies were clear, and the moon, while not necessarily full, provided a lot of moonshine that illuminated the surrounding countryside with dim light. It should be mentioned here that Josh's neighbor's place was located on the border of the mobile home property, next to the sprawling cornfields, without going into too much detail regarding the physical alignment of the objects within the story. The important facts are that the girl's bedroom was located at one end of the trailer and had two windows. Josh and James were each standing at one of the windows talking to the girl, trying to coax her to sneak out and come hang out with them. Josh was at a window that obstructed his view to the cornfields and open lawn, while James was at the window that looked out onto the cornfields and open lawn. And by open lawn, I mean sort of a public playground area with a swing set and a slide and whatnot. It had enough room to play a game, kind of kickball or baseball, and this detail is important to the end of the story. Okay, finally to the good stuff. So there we are there they were talking to this girl. Josh gets tired of trying to get her to sneak out, so he decides to walk around the corner of the house to where his friend James is standing to get him to leave with him. And as he comes around the corner, he becomes nearly paralyzed with terror. This is what he saw. It was a humanoid creature, 2 arms, 2 legs, but it was sort of walking on all fours. It was completely naked, as Death Cypress cited in his story. It had its legs inverted at the knee joint, like a bird's legs are, and was walking near the border of the cornfields, literally seeming to mind its own business as though the last thing it would encounter would be humans. Either way, as soon as Josh saw this creature, he said to James, "James, don't turn around." And of course, because of the look on Josh's face, James had to turn around. I know I would have. And from having Josh recount this story to me several times, it seems as though James turning around was enough motion to catch this creature's attention, because as soon as he did, the creature shot up so that it was standing upright on its legs with its arms perched up, similar to how squirrels look when they're on their hind legs. And then there's this brief exchange of, "What the hell are you?" looks between Josh, James, and the creature. And during this brief moment, Josh was able to catch a much better glimpse of this thing. Its skin was chalk white. Its body was skinny, sinewy, and lean and defined on its 2 legs. It was between 4 and 5 feet tall. Its cranium looked slightly larger than humans did. It had large, shiny, pure black, opaque eyes, a small, narrow mouth, and not so much a protruding nose, but more like 2 slits in its face, 4 nostrils. Its facial structure was sort of akin to what it would look like if a piece of latex were stretched over a human's face. Once this brief moment of bewilderment ended for both parties, the creature suddenly hunched back down on all fours and bolted fast. It ran away across the open lawn and into the cornfields. It spanned a distance of probably 40 or 50 yards in 4 or 5 leaps, and that was the last they saw of it. End of story. Including this story, I've come across 2 others on the internet that describes this creature exactly. The other 2 are Death Cypress and another posted by a gentleman from Washington State on some website I can't remember, that encountered a creature like this while he and his children were camping up in the mountains. What the hell are these things? A subterranean race of creatures, extraterrestrials, extra-dimensional beings? Who knows? But they are at least intelligent enough to be able to avoid humans almost flawlessly. I welcome any comments, and if you read this whole post, congratulations and thank you. Wow. Featuring the Who, Barry? H-U, the Who. Paranormal Portal, the musical, featuring the Who. Barry's got a whole plan for the portal. You're a busy guy, Barry. If I ever need an agent, I'll let you know, brother. I like your vision. 50 yards and fortified leaps. That's what it says, JJ. I know, that's really incredible. That's a hell of a distance to cover in just, a few leaps. Again, I got to say it again, because I think it can't be stated enough that when you think of these, even in terms of wild animals, you take, for instance, a mountain lion, or, any other, like a wolf, and you consider their physical prowess, their physical ability, and then you compare it to that of a human being. A lot of times mountain lions are much smaller than us, but pound per pound, they're a lot stronger than us. And wolves, of course, are intelligent and ferocious, and they can, obviously, all of them can outrun us. Pretty much anything in nature can outrun us, other than like sloths, turtles, and snails or something. But we're pretty slow on the natural curve of things. Even pound for pound muscle ability or muscle strength, we are incredibly weak for our size. When you consider a chimpanzee is much smaller than us, and an average chimp is stronger than any man, including the Olympic weightlifters. I mean, they could literally tear your arm out of its socket. There's so much strength and we swim slow. We're not comfortable at navigating wild places. Even those of us that spend an awful lot of time out in the wilderness and stuff, we just are not adept at that anymore. Perhaps our ancestors were, or perhaps the First Nations very much were, but we've just simply lost those ability to be effective in the wild spaces. And again, that's why I say you take even these creatures, this is their home. These wild places are their home. This is where they survive. This is where they've were born, raised, whatever, for their entire existence, and they've not only survived but they thrived enough to have successful generations and to procreate and to spread and whatever. Now you take the best among us for survivalists, and for the most part, if we don't have supplies, we're screwed. I mean, we're very much screwed. Human beings just don't survive well in the wild spaces. We can for a period of time, but like someone like Les Stroud, who's a brilliant guy and incredibly entertaining, and the real deal as far as I can tell, as far as survival and getting put in impossible situations and doing some incredible stuff. But after every one of his expeditions, he was 20 pounds lighter. He looked absolutely gaunt and exhausted. He did not thrive in those situations. He survived. So we're just not geared towards that kind of life anymore. And there again, if anything ever happened to our way of life, it would be absolute pandemonium for quite a long time. And, because we're just not geared towards living without our modern convenience. We're just not capable of it anymore. So, could we become capable? Sure, I guess we could. But as it stands now, there would be a hell of a problem. But these things are fast, they're light, they're strong, they're agile, they're brilliant in their element. They are just masters of their domain. So we really, on a physical level, we just can't compete. So if it wasn't for our advanced knowledge of creating things to help us, I don't know if the world would look the same if we didn't have this amazing ability to build and create things. So, and to share knowledge, I guess. But anyway, just my 2 cents on it. But yeah, those are incredible feats of, 4 or 5 leaps covering that kind of distance is incredible. But there you have it. That's just another one of those weird kind of cryptid stories. And I love those stories. I think they're great. Here we go. We're going to go into a story about a Ouija board and a black lab. But it's coming from California, so I can't use that accent. Because I don't think the Californians talk like that. All right, this story took place in Sacramento, California. I was around 16 or 17 years old, and I was really into playing with Ouija boards, so I got so addicted to it that I would even dream of playing it alone, which I knew better not to ever play alone. Well, one night I was at a friend's house playing Ouija board, not realizing what time it was, and by the time I got done playing it with my friend, I realized it was actually close to midnight. Well, I said my goodbye and was on my way out the door, and she lived about a half a mile from my house. I was taking a shortcut through a vacant lot, carrying the Ouija board on my right side of my arm. I may have walked for about 5 minutes when I noticed a black lab walking right beside me to my right side. It was probably a foot away, and I kept telling it, "Shoo, go away." But it didn't leave. So I decided to walk a little faster, and it had walked me all the way home, and by the time I got to my door, I had turned around, and it was gone. I looked on the sidewalk to my left and then my right, but there was nothing there. I decided to leave my Ouija board outside that night on the front porch. I was a little spooked out. Can someone please explain to me what they think it may have been? Was it a guardian walking me home, or was it something else? I don't know. That's weird. That's a strange one. I'm just glad you made it home okay. The question is did you quit playing with the Ouija boards after that? That's what I'd be most curious to hear. And again, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think Ouija boards in and of themselves are these incredibly dangerous things. They're just a board. They have a planchette. If they're used, they can become problematic if they're used in such a way as not to protect the people using it, which I don't think 99% of the people understand the correct way to use a Ouija board. But, and then again, even in that situation, 99% of the time, people will use Ouija boards and nothing really will happen. But it's just that possibility. What one time? What if? What if something does connect? And what if you get a connection you don't want? It's a blind channel. You're blindly contacting anything around you and saying, hey, you want to talk? And that can be kind of dangerous, I think. I think it's best left alone or left to people that know what they're doing. Not that people shouldn't learn if you're very interested in it, but make sure to learn and make sure to do a lot of research into it before you start playing with stuff like that, because those kind of things can be absolutely dangerous. Many, many possessions have been claimed to have come from Ouija boards. Is that true or not? I don't know. I just can tell you what's the claims are. Claims are out there about that, and that's terrifying. So don't touch something you don't know how to use. Don't open a portal you don't know how to close. All right, so this next one's coming from Alabama. Let's see what's going on. This one's not too long. It says, this has been taking place for some time now, but at the same time, it's very rare that it actually happens, and I'll be lying in my bed at night, almost in a deep sleep, when all of a sudden, I'll hear somebody calling my name. It sounds like my grandma, but different, so I usually get up to see what it is. Well, the first time it happened was right after my small paranormal group and I had investigated an old cemetery. Yeah, I wonder what went wrong there, which is about a mile through the woods near my house. We all headed home, and then I laid down to go to sleep, and then all of a sudden, I could hear this voice calling my name. So I got up and opened my bedroom door and stepped out into the living room, and I couldn't see anything at all. So I just said, hello? And from the corner near my front door, I hear, come on, Kevin, not much further. So I thought in my head, screw this. So I jetted back to bed and reluctantly fell asleep. Well, morning came and I just threw the thought out of my head for a while. And a couple nights later, I'd been in a dead sleep and I can only remember slightly waking up whilst hearing, come on, Kevin, I need you, coming from the living room. And then I can kind of remember getting up. Well, that's all I can remember from that moment. All I know is that I woke up like an hour later in the middle of the woods that are near my house. Oh no, that's terrible. My house is surrounded by woods for miles, so I had to walk all the way back to my house in the dark. Well, the third and final time so far this has happened, I was walking into the kitchen to get a drink, and I was using my cell phone as a light source. And while I'm standing there, about to open the fridge, and then I hear from the living room, let me do this right. Hold on. Come on, Kevin. You have to do this. Only this time it sounded a little more angry and demanding. So I gathered up my courage and walked into the living room, and once again using my cell phone as a light, and I stopped. Then from the corner of my front door, I hear, now. So I held my light up, but it would not light up that corner. Everything around the corner lit up, but the corner itself would not. So I just got my drink and went back to my room. And I kind of feel as though something followed me from the small cemetery, which is located in the woods. So I'm wondering what the spirit was wanting me to do when I got there. I don't know. That's a question better left alone. Now, I will say that story was submitted in October of 2008. So stories like this are a little more suspect when they're around Halloween time, obviously, to me. Not that you can't trust any ghost stories around then, but I think you got to have a little more a little more suspicion about their authenticity because, do people encounter shadow spirits? Yeah, all the time. That's not unusual. If they were investigating a cemetery, yeah, that's possible. Something would follow you home and for whatever reason try to coax you into its space. I don't know why, but could it happen? Sure. But again, it's kind of like any story you read on April 1st. It could be the most logical or the most real news ever, and automatically be like, You're just always suspending a little bit of belief because you're thinking, well, so that's why I am around Halloween time. I love Halloween stories. I really do, but I really do believe also that a lot of people get a hell of a lot more creative around that time of year, and I think it's fun to spin some spooky yarns, So take it or leave it. Take it for what it is, but it is interesting nonetheless. Let's see what this one is. It says, let me close that last one before I leave it open and reread it tomorrow night. All right, so this one is coming from Georgia, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see what's going on in Georgia. I haven't been back to the site for a year because I thought my paranormal experiences were really over and that I didn't need help anymore, but apparently I'm wrong. From my previous experiences that I related in my 2 stories and other happenings, I've come to believe that I can sense entities. I've been living in my new apartment for almost 2 years, and at first I didn't think that it was haunted in the least, so I let my guard down. I'm a Christian, and I'm in no way superstitious. The experiences that I will relate are all negative, and I feel that my faith, coupled with my apparent ability to sense spirits, has made me a target for whatever is residing in my home. The first thing I noticed about my home is that, and I and certain other members of my family, my 2 younger brothers, are often weary of the back bedroom. Whenever I'm alone there, I get this strong, eerie sensation and feeling that something is in there. It's something similar to the feeling one gets when someone is standing close behind him or her, but here the feeling is stronger and much more sinister. I also get the feeling that the closet in the back bedroom is, for the lack of a better word, a source of the presence. I will under no circumstances sleep in this room, as I'm usually attacked in my sleep by this presence. I've come to trust my senses when it comes to evil presences, but it's hard being the only one, and it seems who can feel these evil influences. The fact that my brothers have a certain fear of this room makes me feel not alone in this. An incident regarding this particular room is a dream I had one day. We have a 1-story apartment, and from the living room, there's a long hallway that leads to the infamous back bedroom. I was asleep on a couch in the living room, and in the dream, I was standing by the couch as I looked down the hall at the bedroom. The door of the bedroom was slightly ajar, and it was dark inside. I suddenly had one of the most horrifying feelings of terror I've ever had in my life. It was a feeling like that something of the utmost terror and evil was in the room, and the door being ajar somehow symbolized that I was vulnerable and that the presence could escape and get me. In the dream, I shot out of the front door and stood in the grass in front of the apartment, and I then woke up. After this, I became certain that this presence was hellish and was targeting me. Not too long afterwards, I had another creepy experience, but this time I was fully awake. It was a Saturday morning, and I was home alone, getting ready to go to work. I was in my room watching a DVD of my pastor preaching on the computer, and my bedroom is on the left side of the hallway, and the door was closed at this time. I got up to go to the living room to finish getting ready, but when I was about to open my door, I got the most urgent feeling that I should not open it. I believe that the Lord was speaking to me and warning me not to go into the hallway yet. I felt the familiar terror and sensed that something was in the hallway just outside of my bedroom waiting for me. I'm getting goosebumps and I'm almost crying as I write this. I believe that the Lord speaks to me, and I certainly obeyed his voice. I kept the door shut, and I turned up the volume on my computer and continued to listen to my pastor preaching. Soon it was almost time for me to leave for work, and I couldn't explain to my boss that I didn't come in because an evil entity prevented me. So I summoned up my courage, prayed, and opened the door. Fortunately, whatever the presence was there seemed to have left the hallway, and I quickly got my things and left. Now, nothing dramatic happened for a while after this, and recently, though, it seems things have been starting up again. One night, about a week or so ago, I was asleep in my room, and I suddenly awoke with the exact same feelings I experienced in the incident I related in another submission, and I felt paralyzed, and in my vision became full of static. I also felt a strong sense of an evil presence. Remembering what this meant the last time I experienced this, I quickly got up and ran from my room and into the living room where I stayed the rest of the night. Now, this is what prompted me to seek help on this website. Just last night, I had an experience that truly frightened me. I was asleep when I suddenly felt a strong paralysis. And then I heard the voice of what might have been the presence or even the devil himself. It had a deep, evil, satanic voice, and the entity was taunting me. I couldn't see anything. There was just paralysis, darkness, and a voice out of the darkness, and the voice was laughing at me and saying something to me in a taunting manner. I remember, however, I don't remember what it was saying. The entire time I was pleading the blood of Jesus as much as I could. I remember trying to wake up, and it was so terrifying. The whole time I couldn't move. I was pleading the blood of Jesus, the voice was taunting me, and I was trying to move and wake up all the time at the same time. And it seemed for a little while nothing was working, and I remember almost crying in my dream, or whatever it was, and then as this all kept going on, I felt myself move my fingers, and I sort of pulled myself awake. It seems that in a paralysis state like this, if I can move something, anything, I can eventually wake up. I agree. That's exactly how I learned how to break mine. I've constantly felt things and even seen things before, but I'd never heard such an evil voice before, and I've always dealt with these things alone because I don't think anyone would believe me. And these things are real, and I keep feeling them, and they keep attacking me. I'm getting scared, and I don't know who to talk to about this. It's getting to the point that I'm almost afraid to fall asleep at night. I'm a very intelligent, sensible person who would not waste my time or anyone else's making up stories and asking for help on fantasies. I'm a devout Christian and would not lie about anything like this. My experiences are real. My fears are real. And my plea for help is real. I would greatly appreciate any response to this article. I would really like to hear from people who've maybe experienced something similar to this. I know it was long, but I needed to get it all out. Thank you sincerely for reading and in advance for your replies. And again, this comes from 2008, so it's not a brand new story by any means. In fact, it's 12 years old now? Wow. Time flies when you're living in the now. This one's kind of long too. Let's see where this one's coming from. It's North Carolina. Going to North Carolina this time, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see what's going on there. And we got plenty of time left. Good. All right. So, North Carolina, we have only told a few people, but we know we live in a haunted house. We built it and love it, and while it is beautiful on the outside and usually calm, strange things have happened. The trees are green and healthy and the flowers bloom, but something just does not feel right to me. I've seen ghosts. A ghost of a well-loved former dog in full color has been sitting outside the house in the yard and will not come in. But a ghost dog, a dark shadow which slinks in, has entered the house a few times, and this week the dark shadow dog came in twice. We've started sleeping in a new room, and the family dog barks up at the ceiling and tracks his eyes along the ceiling, and he does this nightly before he sleeps. When he wakes up in the middle of the night, he barks and barks at seemingly nothing. The cat also sees something on the ceiling in another room. 2 bedrooms seem haunted, but the other rooms are fine. The bathrooms seem very clear, and I feel safe there. Last fall, I saw a very tall, hooded figure that had intense, bright green eyes. He didn't say anything, but just stood on the stairs, and no one wanted to go upstairs, including the dog. I prayed out loud, and he left. We laugh about the technology in the house. The TVs all stop working after a month and they worked fine in the old place. The picture turns unclear and we are now on TV number 4. The radio has turned on and off by itself and the internet regularly connects by itself. It did today. It will usually connect from 3 to 4 a.m. and I can hear it connecting and can see how long it connects. Is there significance to this time? Well, yeah, 3 to 4 a.m. is a very active time for paranormal investigators. More oddities. The house has an ant problem, both inside and out. There are many ant traps laid out, and also it has flies that show up in the spring, summer, and fall. The flies come in, often 4, 5, and 6 at a time. Outside on the deck, there are black widow spiders, 2 large females, and last week there were huge, chunky spiders on 3 walls, and they had built enormous webs, and the spiders were large in a variety that I've never seen before. Although creepy, I felt that they may have been protecting the house with their huge webs. Once had a built-in web directly in the front of the door and was just in front of me at face level. More weirdness. Dishes break frequently and people comment on an order that comes and goes. A large mirror fell off the wall for no reason and did not break, but the curios in front of it smashed to the floor in pieces. Patches of the lawn have died overnight. Generally, it was very lush, and mushrooms will spring up. A positive, the yard is full of birds. The birds have flown in the house and tapped at the windows, and while there has been a lot of illness in the house, no one has died, which superstition says. What? Okay. I'm not sure which superstition says. Let me reread that. A positive, the yard is full of birds. The birds have flown in the house and tapped at the window. And while there has been a lot of illness in the house, no one has died, which superstition says. I don't understand what superstition told them, but anyway. I and others feel the house has bad energy, and 2 people believe it is haunted. We've been packing up the house to move, but every time we actually start to move out, something happens. Unexpected illness, relationship problems, and house problems. I once heard a voice that told me something like this. Let me do this right. See what happens when you leave? And the odd events keep happening. And when we stop packing, things calm back down. I finally called a psychic who said the house was haunted. She detected Civil War deaths and said there were body parts of soldiers in the yard. The Civil War was fought near there, 45 to 60 minutes away, but the land before the house was built was woodland. Please help and tell me what you think. I've been told these events are bad feng shui, or it says bad feng shut, S-H-U-T, but I know they mean shui, or ghosts, spirits, or even the devil. I don't know. Creepiness, that's the thing, is we cut down trees and stuff and we figure that land is ours, but we don't know the story of the land. The land can have a story all of its own. First Nation tribes often had many areas within their region that were considered sacred. And if you want to piss off some First Nation spirits, start putting houses on sacred places. Then you'll see some activity. They don't like it much. And you got to wonder why. Was it the First Nations awareness of the energy, or was there a lot of spiritual experiences in a place, and they therefore would make it sacred? And I don't pretend to know for sure, but I imagine it's all of the above. That those places were designated as sacred because of things that were observed there on that property or on that parcel of land. So. And I can't say that that's the case for this house or not, but I'm certain that would be something that would bear looking into if it's possible to trace that back to the local tribes back in the day. Unfortunately, the problem is a lot of that information is just gotten lost. There was no real effort put into keeping records of the knowledge of the First Nation tribes, except the Smithsonian does have some really incredible things. A house I used to own was owned by a woman named Frances Densmore, and she lived in Minnesota, and she dedicated her life to going around and recording tribal drum beats and songs and rituals. And she did it throughout her whole life, all over the country. She went all over, and her work, last I heard, was on permanent exhibit in the Smithsonian. And it's been said that a lot of First Nation tribes have revisited her work to relearn their customs. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. I'm so glad that she did that, because without that, those things would have been lost. They would have been gone in the sands of time. So that's really cool that there were some people that did it, but so much has been lost. And we oftentimes release those ancient knowledges in light of our brand new scientific knowledges. And I think we adhere to those scientific knowledges because they require nothing. They just require that we believe. Ancient knowledges require balance, and they require a harmony, and they require an understanding. But it's so much more convenient for us, and we can be so much more selfish when we just adhere to a scientific knowledge. We can do whatever we want, because it's a mindless thing. But anyway, just more of my 2 cents. You didn't ask for them, but you get them all the same. That's like the Paranormal Portal bonus plan, ladies and gentlemen. You show up for some stories, and I'll give you my opinion on a whole lot of stuff, whether you ask for it or not. So, but I think that these old ways, there was so much wisdom in them, and it really does break my heart that we've lost a lot of that through the time, that we've lost the ability to find those old truths or understand those old dynamics. It's kind of funny because we're in a period of real resurgence, I believe, in trying to reestablish those ancient wisdoms, and that's why there's channels like Gaia and Curiosity and so many others that are out there that are talking about these old things that were observed and understood, and the correlations that these ancient wisdoms had with new revelations and things like quantum physics and stuff, I think is absolutely incredible. Just amazing. I mean, you've got, what would it be? Like old Sumeria, they had knowledge of stars that weren't visible for, centuries and centuries and centuries later, when technologies were developed, in the form of rudimentary telescopes and stuff to see these things. And sometimes much, much later, when more advanced telescopes were built, but they had knowledge of these things. How is that possible? But they did. So I think that either there's something really profound with these ancient alien kind of ideas, or these ancient peoples really were tapped into a kind of a universal knowledge, whether it's an Akashic records kind of thing or what. It's up to you to decide what that could mean, but they just seem to know things that they had no business knowing, and it defies our understanding of the world and what has happened here. Wow, this one's from Hawaii. How much time do we got left? Because it's a long one, but I'd like to read it. I only got about 5-10 minutes. I guess we got about 7 minutes left. I'll read through this Hawaii one, and then it'll be the night. So let's go through this. This is Hawaii, ladies and gentlemen. I'm 19 years old, and I've had about 3 personal experiences with sleep paralysis or ghost experiences, all within a month's time, and all happened about 6 weeks ago. I've had many others which weren't firsthand, but I was there in the room when it had happened, and these occurred within the month's time, and I will also explain a few of those as well. My friend told me about when he was sleeping and he woke up to something pushing him down. He couldn't move, but could talk. But it wasn't English. He spoke a language that was out of this world, almost robotic. Like he said that, and it never really got to me until something similar happened. What happened with me was I went to college and moved into the dorms, and I'm still living in the dorms, as this only happened a couple of weeks ago. My friend who had an experience similar to mine also came along from college life. We arrived August of 2008. First couple of weeks were fine with no problems. And then one day, my friend said he had something to tell me about the night before. He said he felt something over him. And I too saw something the night before and just didn't want to scare him. But he brought it up, so did I, and I saw something dressed glowing in white pass by him. I only saw the lower half of its body, though, but I did estimate he was pretty tall, around 5'9" our heights based on where his waist was and the bed was, and it didn't touch him though, and as he told me, just passed by. The next night I couldn't go to sleep, and I heard two noises in each of the corner of the rooms. They were like ha's, not laughing, but the sound like when you warm your hands. 30 minutes apart, 30 minutes after the last one, while I was on my side facing the wall, away from my friend, and got pushed down from my leg and my arm. And it felt like something whispered in my ear about 1 inch away, the same noises that was heard in the corner of the room. I didn't try to move as I was absolutely terrified. The feeling quickly passed after it said that, and I knew I was awake because my eyes were open, and I yelled to my friend, but he was awake for about the same amount of time this was going on. About a week later, I woke up early in the morning, to the morning sun, and right when it rose up, so it was still kind of dark, and I thought that if the sun was out, nothing would happen, so I tried to go back to sleep. I put my head back down, and not even a minute later, I smelt a sort of perfume/cologne mix, as if someone was holding a magazine with different pages of perfumes and colognes in my nose. This sounds really familiar. It was really strong, so I couldn't ignore it. I turned over as I was facing the wall, and before I could get my head facing straight towards the ceiling, something made the same noise I heard at the corner about a week ago, and pushed my head back facing the wall. This happened over and over again, and while it was happening, I tried to call for my friend over and over again as well, but only gibberish came out. My friend finally woke up and saw me twitching, as he described it. He didn't say anything, but he yelled out, and I finally snapped out of it, and I wasn't sleeping because my eyes were open the whole time, and I had a full conversation with my friend. I wasn't scared this time, but I felt like it was trying to play with me. I was more curious than anything. I know I've read this. This is weird. The same thing happened again, a mix between the first and second one, but I woke up, and it was pretty much more of the second one, but I had a full-on conversation with the ghost. I don't remember what we talked about, but the significance was just to know that I was sleeping, so I knew the difference between when I was awake and sleeping. The same thing happened to a couple of friends who spent the night in our rooms. They were two girls named Kat and Maya, and they were sleeping on the floor between our two beds, and while sleeping, my friend JD, my roommate, saw a figure near the Maya's feet, the girl closest to him at her feet. It was dark, and she was dressed in black, so he thought Maya was just kneeling down. I know I just read this the other night, but I'm going to continue anyway because we're already halfway through it. He thought, why would she be kneeling down at the same time of night at around 4 a.m., but he ignored it and heard a noise outside the window. He yelled my name, and at the same time, the girl closest to my bed, Kat, yelled my name as well, and just when Maya told me to turn on the lights, I did, and come to find out that Kat, the girl closest to my bed, experienced something like she was being stepped on by multiple persons or multiple feet. Just like me, she had no past experience, and she couldn't talk or move or anything. We also asked Maya if she was kneeling down, but she said she was on the floor, laying down the whole time. I have no experience in ghosts or the paranormal, so I don't know if there are multiple spirits or ghosts in my room, or if one is an adult and the one is a kid, or if one is good and the other's evil based on the black and white appearance. I have no clue what this is or what it wants, and I don't think it wants to harm me because it hasn't. It just pushed me down. Hasn't choked me or anything, nothing to harm me. But like I said, in my story, this has never happened to me before up until about a month and a half ago, and I haven't had any experiences for about 2 weeks now, by the way. Well, thanks for reading. I know it was long, but I hope to hear from anyone who can help or can fill me in on what they know. Yeah, strange. I know it's strange. I know it sounds paranormal, but that's about all I know. So I don't know if you guys know more than that. But I also know that that's the end of the show. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for being a part of the show. Sorry to just almost burp into the mic there. I certainly didn't mean it. It just kind of snuck out. But anyway, love you all. Have a great Monday. Put it out there to the universe. It's going to be an amazing day. And maybe it will be. Just think positive things. Just think you're going to have an amazing day at work. That's all there is to it. So I will be here waiting for you guys tomorrow night for more Night Terrors. I hope you'll join me then. But you all take care. Thank you so much for all the support and love you've been giving us. Watch for the podcast. It'll be available after midnight tonight. And hope you guys will check it out. And if you like what you're hearing, head over to iTunes, leave us a good review because it goes a long way in getting our shows recommended to other paranormal enthusiasts. So we've got some amazing reviews out there. And thank you to those of you who have taken the time and energy to do that. It really means a bunch. So we are we do 3 podcasts a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So wherever you get podcasts from, iTunes, iHeart, Pandora, Spotify, or the many others that are out there, check it out and subscribe so that you'll get all of our episodes downloaded right to your phone or to your listening device, laptop, iPad, whatever. And we'll be waiting to share some more of this paranormal fun with you. But we love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day. And remember to laugh as much as you can. And please make sure to like and subscribe the video. Share it around. Let people have a chance to see the portal. So love you all. Have a great night and sweet dreams.